Your best is what you did yesterday. It's a phrase that I fell upon. Honestly, I don't know that I heard it anywhere, so I would guess it's original with me, but I'm sure it's not an original thought, because there's nothing new under the sun. But your best is what you did yesterday was a conclusion and a phrase that I drew when working with some employees that I had. People hate it when you talk about quotas, but when you're bidding a job, at least in construction, you have kind of what you would figure like an average amount of whatever that's going to get done in a day. And you can put a monetary price on that because, you know, the hours that it takes to do it, and, you know, that's how you bid your job. You know, it's like if in 8 hours time a guy can frame, say, 62 lineal feet of metal stud wall, then if you have two guys, you would expect them to do 124 feet a day. And you can figure, you know, the cost of two guys, plus all the extra, you know, not just their wage, but, you know, the taxes and insurances and stuff that go on top of that. And then whatever margin you're going to put on that. And you figure out a lineal foot price. And then you go through, you know, you do your takeoff on the print, use your wheel or your, you know, they have this little electronic wheels and stuff now, or back in the day we had these little takeoff rulers, little 3-foot rulers that had different increments on them, you know, 1/4 inches a foot or 3/16 a foot, that kind of thing. And you do your takeoff, you go through and you find all your different wall types, and you figure out, you know, how long it's going to take to build each kind of type, you know, and you plug in the math and you come up with a number. Well, then your guys get out on the job. And you know, based on your own experience, based on the experience of others, and based on, you know, kind of standard framing numbers about what they should be getting every day. And some days are going to be higher and some days are going to be lower. There's a lot of detail work. They're going to slow down. But sometimes when there's wide open stretches that are very uncomplicated, they should really speed up. And I found that, you know, if you tell the guys, well, I need you to do this much, you know, this is like your quota, you got to get this much a day kind of thing, it was ultimately kind of counterproductive, because there was some resentment with that. And if it was easy framing, then they would just do that and nothing more. You know, they'd while away the rest of their day when they could have got 20, 30, 40, 100 more feet, and they didn't, not understanding that the 100 more feet they got that day made up for the day that they only did 24 feet, kind of thing. But one of the rebuttals when I would ask them, you know, about their production totals and, you know, whatever, they would say, well, I'm doing my best, or I tried my best. And I got to thinking about what that means, and that was really kind of a deflection, saying, well, you're not getting more out of me today. This is all that I did, period. But by appealing to that, well, I tried my best, or I tried my hardest, or I did my best, and I'm like, well, honestly, what is your best? Your best is what you've done in the past. And that's where I came up with the phrase, your best is what you did yesterday. Because in my own personal experience, one of the things that I did that made me pretty productive was I kind of was always in a race with myself. And there's a lot of people say, oh yeah, knock yourself out, kill yourself, work super hard so that you can make the boss rich. Well, the margins I had on stuff, I wasn't getting rich at all. But I understood that in order for me to make money and to continue making money, and the possibility of maybe making some more money, was for me to be productive. Not just to meet the quotas or the standards or the averages, but to internalize, well, how good a job can I do? how fast a job can I do? And can I maintain my quality while moving even faster? And that involves developing, efficient habits, or planning your workout, or whatever it is that you do, even if it's just moving faster. Often that's not the true key to all of that, because that just tires you out faster. But just being more efficient about how you work the process. So for me to say your best is what you did yesterday is strive to be better. I looked for reasons to try to pay guys more. But I had to be profitable to do it. I had to be able to cover my own expenses and not have to just rely on the output that I personally did, but, the margins that I could make on their efforts. And, there's some people who are really resentful about somebody making a profit off of them. It's a whole rabbit hole. I get it. I've been on both sides of it. I'm still on both sides of it. But it's got to be worth the risk. You take the risk as a contractor. You bid the job. You sign the paperwork. You promise, based on other people's promises, that you can do it for X. And then those little paper urchins who had you sign everything, they insist on you holding to your terms, even if they will delay you or move your schedule around, or in 100 different ways obstruct you. They still expect you to get done on time and to deliver what you promised. And of course it's under threat of whatever that is. So you take guys that you pay by the hour, and you go on to the job, and you hopefully we're smart enough to build in some good margins, but you're competing with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that has a truck and a cordless. And in the unassailable language of your best is what you did yesterday, it's taking away the excuse making. It's saying, well, I did my best. Yeah, but that's in the past. Are you improving? Because my profitability and your future wage increases are dependent on that. And not even just the promise of a wage increase, but having any work at all. Because there's plenty of people out there who will either miss something on their quote, or they'll just flat undercut you because they're going to pay their guys way less, or maybe they're getting materials at a better rate than you. They're better at negotiating or whatever it is. But there's lots of competition out there, and to just do your best, is that really what you want? I have to do better. So this is like a part two to what I was talking about, which was my time yesterday, about your best is what you did yesterday. Just as a little bit of a backstory, the storied past of my working career had me working at a company that the owner of the company was an exceptionally good estimator. He was really, really good at work. And the old adage that he played at working and he worked at playing was very true. I would come into the office and he would sit for an hour and tell me stroke by stroke his golf game that he had had earlier in that day. I don't golf, so I didn't care. It didn't matter. That's what mattered to him. I didn't like his business dealings, and I had heard, this thing or that thing about how he was with money, and I was like, well, I can work for him as long as he doesn't mess with my money. And as soon as he does, then I'll find a way to get out. And that's pretty much what happened. But one thing that I learned from him, and I can't say it's a phrase I had never heard before, but it registered coming from him, because I don't know if he's living or dead. I don't mean to disparage him necessarily, but he kind of had that, corner cutting, used car hucksterish mentality, and so for him to say this, it really struck me as this is an insight I need to listen to. And he talked about enlightened self-interest. And it's kind of the not the reverse of the golden rule, but its effect was to serve the interests of others because it serves your own interests. And ultimately that's what economy is. The economy is being useful to other people. It's an exchange of goods or services. It's an exchange. We can gussy it up, dress it up with all sorts of facts and figures and nomenclature and all the rest of that, but it's being useful to other people. The utility of economy is, not many of us are wholly self-sufficient, and in this society they actively discourage that because government runs on economy. They run on the exchange of goods and services. They take their cut. But this guy, who was certainly not virtuous in any stretch, any way that you could stretch that word to try to make it include how he was as a person, understood enlightened self-interest. And so when I talk about, your best is what you did yesterday, yeah, I was saying that as an employer to employees, or to my son, or, whoever, to try to take away the excuse making when they would not give me their best, or not even really try, and just call it their best, and it's like, well, you're not getting more than that. It's very self-serving to talk about it in those terms, but the idea of I'm going to be smarter about my hard work. I hate that work smarter, not harder. No, work smart and hard. By improving my proficiency, by improving my efficiency, by improving my productivity, I made myself a more valuable asset to any company, which means I could command a higher price, etc., etc. Yes, I served their interests. I made them money. I made them lots of money. But I also made me money. And I think that's kind of the heart of the idea of self-improvement. And I am not a grind it bro kind of dude. That's just hormones. That's a short-term strategy, because quite honestly, you grind it for decades and it will grind you. It's like the abyss. You grind the grind too long and the grind will grind you up and you'll be tube meat, as Raymond likes to talk about. I have been in the meat grinder. I have turned myself into a hamburger, chasing the brass ring and all the rest of that. And I understand the struggles from an employee, from a worker's viewpoint, because I've always tried to wear my tools in the most unhappiest. The most unhappy times that I had as an employer was when I could not wear my tools. But from an employer's standpoint, having guys who understand being useful to other people and understand that the employer has to be profitable, and it's not a versus, it's a we're all putting our shoulder to the same load and pushing in the same direction kind of thing. Not that we're a family, not that we're getting equal shares of anything, because that's not how it is. Generally speaking, it's risk and reward that are linked together, and working for other people involves a lower risk. I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of OSHA-involved risks, and when it comes to work, but in terms of putting your money on the line, putting your liability on the line, warranting things, standing behind work, making promises, possibility of being sued if you don't keep them, and then all of the perils of non-payment. Because believe it or not, employers aren't just the ones who bounce checks. There are plenty of horror stories of contractors that have gone into houses and done work, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm not paying you. Go ahead, put a mechanics lien on the house. Sue me. I'm not moving. You'll never get your money." And so there's those perils too, and risk and reward, whatever. But that's kind of off the point. The point being, it's not a bootstraps thing to say skill up or level up or whatever. If it's real skill, I'm not talking about like, oh, you got another certification, oh, the corpos are going to love you for all of your certificates. That's all bull. Can you do the work? Can you do the work well? Are you productive? Can you problem solve on the fly? Those are all things that are very valuable to any employer. And I guess I'm talking mostly from a tradesman's point of view and perspective. Everything that I've seen about, corporate type work, office type work, all of that kind of thing, it just seems to me like there's more weasels in that line of work than there are even out when you get in construction and all the rest of that. But I guess there's weasels everywhere, and I suppose depending on who you talk to, they might even accuse me of being one. But regardless, when I say be better, get better, do better, it's in service to yourself. Because I don't employ people anymore. I stopped counting on people a long time ago, and plus, frankly, I make better money for the effort and the stress that goes into it, wearing my tools, than I ever did managing people. Maybe it's just because I'm a bad people manager. But this was kind of an addendum to the prior segment. I guess that'll do.